Morning. Let me start in Spanish, please. Muy buenos días y gracias por estar con nosotros el día de hoy. El día de hoy vamos a hablar respecto a la importancia del inglés en la educación para fortalecer la empleabilidad. Así que bienvenidas y bienvenidos. Mi nombre es Rosalía Valero. Soy la gerente senior de evaluación en Cambridge, aquí en México, y tendré el honor de ser su anfitriona el día de hoy. Antes de comenzar oficialmente con este webinar, me gustaría hacer unas recomendaciones para que puedan aprovechar de la mejor manera esta sesión. Asegúrese, por favor, de que su audio y su conexión estén disponibles durante la sesión. Este es un evento en vivo. En caso de algún problema técnico, buscaremos resolverlo lo antes posible, pero si fuera necesario, se reprogramará esta sesión. No nos preocupamos. Al final del evento, tendremos un espacio de 5 minutos aproximadamente para preguntas y respuestas. Les invito a dejar sus preguntas en el apartado que dice Q&A, Question and Answer. Lo pueden ver en el menú inferior de su pantalla de Zoom. En 3 días hábiles, deben de recibir un correo con la liga a la grabación de la sesión y su constancia de participación. Por cierto, vamos a poner instrucciones para que ustedes puedan activar los subtítulos en español si quieren usarlos cuando Olivia presente. Para comenzar formalmente nuestro evento el día de hoy, tendremos las palabras de nuestra colega Tara Odende, directora comercial adjunta en la Embajada Británica en México. Entonces, aquí, Tara con nosotros. Encantada de tenerte aquí el día de hoy, Tara. Por favor, adelante.
Muchas gracias, Rosalia. Muy buenos días. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos virtualmente el día de hoy. Mi nombre es Tara Odende y soy la jefa adjunta de la sección comercial en la Embajada Británica aquí en México. Estoy encantada de darles la bienvenida hoy a este evento que Cambridge ha preparado para ustedes, uno que espero encuentran tan útil y emocionante como lo hicimos nosotros. A nivel global, las universidades e instituciones de educación superior tienen como objetivo preparar a sus estudiantes para que estén listos para el mercado laboral, por lo que la empleabilidad resulta un elemento vital en sus programas. Se solía pensar que obtener excelentes calificaciones y contar con conocimientos específicos o habilidades técnicas específicas era suficiente para ingresar al mercado laboral. Hoy, la empleabilidad de las y los estudiantes depende de más que eso. Para poder participar de manera efectiva en el lugar de trabajo y alcanzar su máximo potencial a lo largo de sus carreras, las y los empleados y los futuros empleados, una vez graduados, también necesitan desarrollar habilidades básicas transferibles y actitudes apropiadas. Muchas de estas habilidades, a menudo denominadas habilidades blandas o por su término en inglés soft skills, son habilidades sociales. Surgen de la necesidad de trabajar bien con otras personas, con diferentes antecedentes e intereses potencialmente conflictivos. Se preguntarán, ¿realmente son demandadas por el mundo laboral o solo son un campo más por rellenar en los currículums? Permítanme darles una respuesta con un ejemplo. Una gerente de recursos humanos se presenta con un dilema. 2 candidatos calificados se entrevistan para el mismo puesto, pero solo uno puede ser contratado. La gerente se verá con la necesidad de evaluar más allá que sus competencias académicas y sus experiencias laborales similares. Al elegir entre 2 candidatos aparentemente iguales, ella priorizará las habilidades blandas como el diferenciador clave. De hecho, en el reporte Global Talent Trends de LinkedIn, el 92% del personal de adquisición del talento informaron que las habilidades blandas son igual o más importantes para contratar que las habilidades duras. El 89% dijo que cuando un nuevo empleado no cumple con el desempeño demandado es porque carece de habilidades blandas críticas. Las habilidades blandas, junto con el idioma inglés, resultan más necesarias que nunca. Hablando sobre el mercado laboral mexicano, el dominio de inglés es una habilidad altamente valorada por las y los empleadores. La mitad de los empleadores ofrecen paquetes de condiciones iniciales más atractivos a los candidatos que presentan buenas habilidades en la lengua inglesa. Asimismo, resulta un factor determinante para un desarrollo profesional más rápido y poder obtener mayores incrementos salariales. El Reino Unido, al ser un ejemplo de éxito en el campo de educación y de la enseñanza del inglés, se encuentran en una posición única para brindar apoyo a países como México que desean mejorar su desempeño nacional en términos de empleabilidad y la enseñanza del idioma inglés. Con las habilidades y experiencias combinadas de instituciones británicas como Cambridge, México tiene a su alcance del expertise británico en educación. Hoy, Cambridge organizó esta sesión titulada How Can We Help Our Students Become More Employable? Con Olivia Goodman, líder de investigaciones en Cambridge University Press and Assessment. Nos mostrarán cómo se pueden integrar el desarrollo de estas habilidades a través del inglés y apoyar a sus estudiantes a desarrollar su capacidad de empleabilidad. Con más de 100 años de experiencia en el campo de educación y un caso de éxito de institución británica en México, estoy segura que esta sesión resultará de suma importancia para nuestros estudiantes mexicanos. Me gustaría cerrar agradeciendo a todas las personas involucradas en este evento y les invito a aprovechar al máximo la sesión de hoy. Muchísimas gracias.
Gracias, Tara. Thank you very, very much. Ahora sí, vamos a empezar con el tema de How can we help our students become more employable? Con nuestra experta, Olivia Goodman. Por cierto, Olivia está conectada desde Cambridge, Inglaterra, el día de hoy. Permítanme presentarles a Olivia. Olivia Goodman es líder de investigación en Cambridge University Press and Assessment. Su experiencia, como mencionó Tara, incluye la lingüística, enseñanza del idioma inglés y gestión en el cambio. Actualmente sus actividades incluyen explorar cómo la investigación sobre la efectividad en la enseñanza y aprendizaje se pueden aplicar para crear productos digitales que apoyen la enseñanza y mejoren la experiencia de aprendizaje a través de la tecnología. En su sesión el día de hoy, Olivia plantea la necesidad de los docentes en preparar a sus estudiantes para la vida laboral, además de seguir apoyándolos para obtener buenos resultados en sus exámenes. Olivia nos mostrará cómo puede integrar el desarrollo de las habilidades a través del inglés y así apoyar a sus alumnos a desarrollar su capacidad de empleabilidad. As you can hear, right now I'm switching to English as Olivia may be starting to think that we forgot to say that she would be using Spanish today when we invited her here to be with us. ¿Ya estás lista, Olivia? Just joking. I hope you enjoyed that and experience introduction in Spanish, Olivia. And now the stage obviously changes to English because it's all yours, Olivia. So please, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Rosalia. My Spanish isn't that good, so we'll stick to English for now. But thank you so much for inviting me here today to talk to you all. I'm going to try and share my screen now, so hopefully this works. And hopefully you can see my screen.
Yes,
okay,
we can see it.
Oh, wonderful! Thank you, thank you. So thank you, Rosalia, for the introduction. As you said, I'm Olivia and I work in the Insight application team at Cambridge. And this talk today hopefully is going to help you understand how we can make our students become more employable. And particularly focusing on like the increasing demand and expectations on teachers to do more than just preparing students for exams. Or to learn English, but also developing the skills that your students need to be successful at work and in their careers as well. So how can English teachers like yourselves and heads of department help your students in improving their employability? So in this talk, I'll hopefully help you work out an approach to integrating learning English that you're already doing with developing students' employability skills. So first of all, let me just talk you through what we'll cover in this session. So we'll look at what today's employers are really looking for when they recruit new individuals or promote their staff. We will look at the Cambridge Employability Skills Framework for ELT, which we've developed, which sums up all the research that has happened in that area. And this will really help you understand what skills you would like to try and develop in your students. Secondly, we will look at how we can integrate employability skills into our English programs. Thirdly, we will look at a range of activities that you can use to integrate learning English with the development of these employability skills. And the aim there is to add employability to the English language program that you're already running without taking away time from learning English, because we know that time is precious. And then we'll look at practical ideas and classroom activities for combining English language and improving employability at the same time. And then at the end, I'll throw in some more kind of general tips and ideas before hopefully having time for some questions as well. And I would like to say, feel free to use the chat. You're all experienced professionals here, so share your ideas, talk to each other, comment on anything throughout the talk. It's a great way to interact with your peers and colleagues from around the world. Okay, so to get you in the mindset for this, in true ELT style, I would like to ask you a question, if that's okay, and it's on Slido. So you can either scan the QR code on your phone if you've got your phone with you, or you can go to slido.com and type in the code, which is 1916154. And I want you to answer the question, what comes to mind when you hear the word employability? So hopefully we can see your results coming through on here. So when someone says employability to you, what does that mean to you? What kind of things come to mind? Opportunities. Oh, great. Yeah. Skills. Challenge. Oh, I like that one. That's great. Something useful. Yeah, usefulness. Yeah, I like that you're talking about the opportunities there and how that might open up the chance and the opportunity for students. And I'm just looking in the chat as well. The capacity of getting a job. Yeah, definitely. Advantages. Being professional. Okay. Any others coming through on Slido there? Okay. Great. Yeah, so that's really useful. Personal development. I think that's a really good answer there. Enhancing students. Yeah. Yeah, well-rounded. Oh, there's loads more coming in there. That just that just jumped. Success as well. Competencies. I like that one. Work environment. Qualifications. Yeah, responsibilities. That's a good one as well, because we will all have responsibilities in employment. Adaptability as well. That's a great skill there for employability. Improvement's good because I think always you're improving when you're in your career and in work. Opportunity to thrive. This is all really good, and I'm really pleased to see these because it means that we're in the right mindset for the rest of the talk. So thank you so much for your input there. I'm going to move on, and now we're going to look at so we've looked at what your ideas are about employability. So now we're going to have a look at which skills matter most to employers. And we've got another task here. Don't worry, we haven't got tasks throughout the whole talk, don't worry. So this one, I've adapted an activity here from one of our course books called Empower. And there's a list there, as you can see on the screen, of different skills and qualities that some managers might look for when they employ someone new. And what I want you to do is go into Slido again, and you can see a list of some of those skills and qualities. And I'd like you to rank them. So which one do you think is the most sought after skill that employers look for? And which one do you think is the least sought after? So you should be able to click on each of them and order them on there. But again, feel free to use the chat as well if that's helpful. It would also be interesting to see if you think there's any skills missing there, any that you would put at the top. Problem solving skills has come through on the chat. Yeah. Creative thinking, nice. Yeah. Problem solving skills and creative thinking coming up the top there, along with working in a team. I suppose there they mean working well in a team, right? Problem solving skills seems to be winning still. Okay, work experience coming through in the chat as well. Yep, problem solving skills. Yeah. Okay. Number 5, someone's put in the chat, positive attitude. I mean, that definitely helps, doesn't it? You've got to come to work with a positive attitude to get things done. But problem solving skills seems to be winning there. I can just see another one in the chat actually, flexibility, that's not on the list, but I think that's really important as well, and I think that came up actually in some of your ideas in the first activity. Self-confidence as well, yeah, really important. Okay, thank you so much for your input there. That's really, really interesting to see. But problem solving and creative thinking, I think, have just about won it there, first and second, and then working in a team as well. Okay, so let's move on then. So now we've thought about that for ourselves and we've reached some kind of consensus on what might be most sought after. It's clear that we have different ideas and people have different opinions about which skills are most suitable and what we value as employers. And from various research initiatives that we have conducted, looking into this in more depth, we have found that there are 6 key factors that influenced an employer's decision when they were hiring an individual for a role or promoting someone. And they're here on the screen. You can see, and these might not come as us, but it's nice to have them set out to understand what actually influences an employer's decision. So we've got experience here, which of course is relevant. The amount of experience depends on the level of the role that you're applying for, and the type of experience obviously needs to be relevant and suitable for the job. Then we've got technical or practical skills needed to be able to fulfill a role, and they're important as well. And then we've got these soft skills, so things like problem solving skills, which came up in the previous activity, stress management, time management, all of those kind of skills together. Another big one is actually English skills. Again, that's probably not a surprise to you whilst we're in this talk. A lot of employers and employees themselves value English language skills. So that's great that that's come up there. Another one is personality, and obviously we've come up with positive attitude and working well in a team. That's come up before. So that kind of making sure you're a good fit for the team and having the right attitude to do the job, that's important. And then we've got cultural fit there as well. And here we're talking about organizational culture. So how well you fit in with the company and if your values align with the company's values. So out of these 6 areas then, which ones do you think we can develop in the English language classrooms? If you can put your ideas in the chat. It doesn't just have to be one, it might be all of them. Which ones can we develop? Cultural fit, English, yeah, all of them. Soft skills, yeah. English. Personality, all of them. A lot of all coming through there. Yeah. Okay, great. I think I agree. I definitely agree with you. Of course, we can develop English in the English language classroom, but we can also develop soft skills in our classroom too, and we'll look into this overlap later on. Language classroom, you're probably already looking at things like problem solving, critical thinking. They're probably already coming up in your classrooms. And if you're aware of our life competencies framework, they're covered in there as well. And there's definitely overlap between the skill you're looking for in their new recruits. So of course, some of them there is a less relevance, although like you said, we can definitely cover all of them in our classes. In cultural fit, that kind of depends very much on the individual's values and how they align with the cultural values of the organisation. But we can actually make students aware of those things when they're applying for jobs and looking into organisations to work for. So we can make students aware of all of these different factors here. So one reason why I asked for your input at the start of the session to find out what employability means to you is that employability skills can mean different things to different people. And that makes it quite difficult to integrate those skills when we don't really know what they are. We've got different nuances of different words. We've got different skill sets there. And increasingly, we understand that employability is about far more than just getting a job. It's about having those transferable core skills, appropriate attitudes that really enable you to do your job well and be successful throughout your whole career. So some are fast, which is not surprising, and encompasses a really wide range of skills that are in demand as a result of the fourth industrial revolution. And according to the World Economic Forum, the fourth industrial revolution is the fusion of technologies and blurring of lines between physical, digital, and biological spheres, creating a demand for new skill sets. And I don't think that's news to you. It basically means that we've got we're talking about skills that we want to develop, making sure that students are prepared for the world of work, and particularly jobs that we don't know exist yet. And that change is happening quicker and quicker as more technological and digital skills are increasingly needed. So some of the skills that came up were, of course, digital and data. English for employability came up as well. Sustainability skills, so things related to climate change, the environment, of course, all of that's important now too. There's the broader skill sets relating to science, technology, engineering and maths, what we call STEM. And then also upskilling and reskilling in all of those sectors. So that's really about the training and continual development in those. But another key area that came out of this research were those soft skills for work. And these skills are being taught at school and in the workplace. But some evidence from the research that we conducted suggested that actually there's a big mismatch between the actual skills that students have and the demand for those skills in work. So there's that skills gap there. So we really need to be doing more in developing these skills in our students so that they're ready for work and can be successful in their careers. And the first step in doing that is to understand more clearly what those skills are that they need to succeed in the workplace. And this has been a really big project for us in Cambridge because we really want to help students develop those skills. As we've said, the English language classroom seems to be a really good place to learn these skills. So let's do more in that area. You can see here from this slide that we've grouped from doing this big research project. We've grouped these skills into three main areas, and there's the core skills, often referred to as soft skills, and include social skills such as the ability to collaborate and communicate effectively. Then we've got high level thinking skills as well, such as critical thinking and problem solving. And then we've got more personal emotional skills such as personal development and self-awareness. And you can scan that code there or go to that link to find the full report if you'd like to read the full research report that we did. And what we found from that research that we did was that in those categories, these were the top most frequently mentioned skills that employers were looking for. And this helps us to understand how it looks from the employer's point of view. So what they're looking for when they're recruiting. But this list actually contains some things which are skills. For example, number 4, which is leadership, or number 3, teamwork and collaboration. We've also got personality traits in there, so positive attitude, work ethic, and some specific technical skills as well. And again, we realized from this list that although it's useful to have this list, we still need to fine it down. For example, if you were handed this list of skills to teach your students, how would you integrate all 20 of these skills into your course? How would you even start to go about doing that? And what do each of them mean, actually? Sometimes we have a different understanding about what they mean. So we've even got to go back that far to define what they mean. So at Cambridge, we decided to analyse this further so that we could actually build a clearer, more coherent model of the employability skills that we're talking about here. And that's what we set out to do in the employability skills framework for ELT. And that looks a bit like this, and I hope that's clear enough for you on the screen. But to give you an idea, the inner circle there are competencies. So there's things like professional development and management in yellow, or innovation and problem solving there in purple. And then we've got the outer circle, which are the core areas, which are linked to those competencies. So if we just zoom in a little bit there, here we can see the 8 competencies that we have in the framework. In the chat, actually, it'd be great if you could let me know if you already include some of these competencies in your classrooms. Feel free to just write some of the areas, or you could say all of them or just one of them, but don't worry if you don't already, we can go into that for the rest of the session. So it might be that you already do types of activities where you kind of have projects, or the content of the material is about employability, or it might be that an article for a reading task is on the topic of global citizenship, for example. Just missing the emotional area, digital literacy, communication, teamwork. Yeah, that's really good to see digital literacy in there as well. Critical thinking. Yeah, communication. Yeah. Oh, this is wonderful. This is really good to see that you already do all of this. Okay, great. Try to focus on critical thinking. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Like, a lot of the times in the English language classrooms, we tend to kind of focus on more, and that's absolutely fine. But here in the framework, we're showing you kind of that broad range, that breadth of the skills and competencies that students can develop to be more employable, so that we've got that kind of well-rounded coverage of each area. But that's the overlap that I'm talking about. Like you said, you're already doing communication, you already do critical thinking. They're skills that we really need to develop for our students to learn and be competent in English. And that's what we want to do for our students to be employable as well. So why not make the most of that overlap there? So let's have a look at the different levels of detail just briefly. So we have the competency, collaboration and teamwork, for example. Then the second layer is the core in a group. And again, that's something that we would do in the English classroom. And then we've got the components. So we're breaking down that core area a little bit more. So, for example, establishing ways of working together. And then the final layer of detail are the can-do statements, and they're observable behaviours that we can look for in the classroom. So if we can really say that our students are discussing best ways of collaborating on a task or project, then we can say, okay, yeah, they're competent, they're good in collaboration and teamwork. And if you're familiar with our life competencies framework, this follows a similar structure to that. So just to give you an example of what that looks like as a whole, this is the full collaboration and teamwork area. And just to tell you, actually, so each of these areas are informed by the research that we've done. And particularly for this area, research among employers revealed that the ability to successfully collaborate and work well in a team is one of the most sought after employee attributes. Around the world, there is an increasing demand from businesses for employees with effective core skills such as collaboration and teamwork. And that's something that we can do in our lesson, which creates a more inclusive classroom and to support successful language acquisition, because it increases that learner engagement. If we're working together, then that's kind of key to being inclusive and engaging there. Okay, so if you're interested in this framework, you can find the full framework at this link here. And I think, don't worry about copying the link, because I think it will be sent to you either in the chat or in a follow-up email afterwards. But you've got the Life Competencies Framework link there as well, so you can have a look at the two. But just to say here, the Life Competencies looks at the skills learners need for life and explores how these change and develop as learners progress throughout their learning journey. And there's a section for at work, which looks at how these life skills might be developed in the context of being at work. Whereas the employability skills framework for ELT is based specifically on the skills that employers look for in their employees. And so they're the skills that make a person more employable. So while there is overlap between the life competencies framework and the employability skills framework, the employability framework is more employer focused, and it describes the skills learners need to be successful in their careers. So how can we integrate these skills into our English programs? We've looked at why, so we might want to empower our learners to be able to use English in a way that helps them succeed, both personally and professionally. We already develop many of these skills through typical English teaching activities, and this means that we can integrate them well into what we're already doing. But how do we do that? So from our perspective in Cambridge, how we use that is by developing curricula for new programs. So this framework helps us to write learning objectives that relate to developing those skills. We might also use it to work in this way so that we can identify those component skills for each part of the course and then design tasks that support that, so it's integrated throughout a course. Thirdly, the framework can help teachers who need to assess their students' progress with these skills. We can use the skills descriptors to compare with each student's behaviour, and we can identify those areas where we might want to improve our students' skills a little bit more. And finally, we can use it for teacher development as well, so helping teachers understand the key competencies better and how to teach them. And that's what we're going to do now. We'll go into the practical application and the classroom activities in waiting for. But I would say, actually, before we do, from all the chat that I can see in here already, I know that you're already really experienced professionals, and I have no doubt that you'll already have some great ideas of what already works and what you currently do. So please do use the chat, as I said earlier, to share your ideas on how you already develop these skills in your students, because it might help other peers on the call to use some of your exercises and activities as well. So let's look at, we've identified 3 main ways that we can develop employability skills in our classrooms. So let's have a look at the first one then, which is to look for opportunities to develop employability skills that are already in your curriculum or course books. Now here we've got an example from Empower again, and I'm not sure how clear that is on the screen, so I'll briefly describe it. It's a reading task, and it's all about dealing with life's little problems. So the little bit of text under there says, you don't have any money, you never finish anything you start, your house is dirty, you can't find a good job, and your whole life is terrible. Well, maybe it's not that bad. If you'd like to improve things, we can help. Here are our top ways to deal with some of life's little problems. So there's a reading text that sits alongside this. So students have to read that advice that's given and answer these questions, and they have to think about why that advice is useful, why or why not. So please could you have a think about this activity, and in the chat let me know which of the competencies this activity is developing, and I've put them up there as a reminder. So thinking about why some advice might be useful or not. Critical thinking, yeah, making decisions. Critical thinking and problem solving, communication. Yeah. Emotional intelligence has come up as well, yeah. Yeah. Communicating skills, emotional, okay, great. Now, actually, we thought that it looks at innovation and problem solving, but it does depend on how you take this activity. So actually, there isn't only one answer. Everything that you've said in there is perfectly fine. But we wanted to take this in a different direction. So we were thinking, actually, under developing a creative mindset there, this activity was encouraging students to engage actively with the ideas and challenges outside their immediate expertise and considering perspectives of different stakeholders. And also it was generating multiple ideas. And just to give you a bit more information as to why this area is in the framework, again, just like the other areas, this is something that employers have said is really valuable to their company. If an employee can work under pressure, they can make decisions. Someone in the chat said making decisions, so that's really useful. And if they can identify problems that they need to solve, and also how they're going to go about solving. So it's not just being able to solve a problem. The innovation part of this is how they approach it. Are they going to use different techniques? Are they going to think about different ways to do that? So in the classroom, as well as helping learners develop the skills they need to be able to participate effectively in the workplace, integrating innovation and problem solving skills into our lessons also generates a strong and immediate need for language. And the process here in this task is more real world than many other classroom tasks, as learners have to focus on both the process and product of what they're working on. So not only is it good for developing problem solving skills, but the language that they need to be able to do that effectively and solving problems in English is really valuable as well. And we've got another task here, and this is a speaking activity. This person is worried about finding a job. There's a few worries there and a few situations, and the students have to match them up and then talk about whether they've ever had any of these worries before. So they might have experience of trying to find a job. So just like before, which competency do you think we're trying to develop in this activity? If you could let me know in the chat, and I've just put them up there again to remind you. Generating ideas, problem solving. Critical thinking again. Yeah, communication, professional development. That's a good good area. Emotional intelligence, collaboration and teamwork. Yeah, again, it's all of them. Again, as I said earlier, it kind of depends how you take the activity and what you might want to do with it. But for us at Cambridge, we thought it was actually a good activity to develop emotional intelligence. Specifically here, we were looking at the kind of demonstrating self-awareness, so that top core area there. And particularly they were monitoring and reflecting on their own emotions. So we were talking about whether they've ever had any of those worries as well themselves, and how would they deal with them. So that emotional intelligence activity there is really important, because it's very likely that your students will be going to apply for jobs, and it is a worry. It is an emotional experience, so it's really great to kind of make students aware of that. And again, just to go into the research behind this area being in the framework, again, it's very highly valued in the world of work. Employees are increasingly required to deal constructively with changes and uncertainty that they may face in work. And to demonstrate that positive disposition to challenges, maintain motivation despite setbacks, and all of these skills like resilience, patience, adaptability, self-awareness, in order to survive and thrive and develop further in their current and future careers. So that was one way to develop employability skills in the classroom. So noticing the opportunities, then in the activities that you already have in your course books. So say you want to help your students with professional development, their goals and actions that they need to take. You've kind of looked at the framework and you've said, okay, let's look at professional development and management. I'm looking back at the activity that we did at the start of the session. You can do this activity with them, as it gets learners to think about in general. But it's also a nice opportunity for them to think about their own strengths and weaknesses. What qualities do they have? What skills do they have already? So what you can do with this activity as an extension is to ask students to discuss ways they can develop their strengths and weaknesses. You can ask them to set one goal for their strength and one to develop a weakness to work on in class over the next few weeks, or to work on outside. If they've already got work experience, how can they develop that in their own job at the moment? And you can, as a teacher, you can help them set those actions. Then they can read up on the skill outside of how they can develop that skill, and then report back in class and discuss that with their course mates there. So that's just one way of how you might be able to extend an activity that you've already got. And then the third area is learning through projects and problems. And these are a really good way to integrate a lot of competencies at the same time. As we've kind of made ourselves aware as we've gone through this session, a lot of the activities really develop different elements of each core area and different competencies. And projects and problems are a great way to do that. So the scenario we've got here is to help Jane, has been invited to lots of job interviews but hasn't yet been successful. She feels she lacks self-confidence and this is holding her back. So this is a scenario. And if you wanted to do a project here, they're kind of more directive. So the 20-minute session to help Jane improve her self-confidence, that's kind of the output's already been given, but it would still help students with their teamwork and collaboration, their communication, their problem solving. So it is really developing a lot of competencies there. And then with problems, help Jane improve her self-confidence. You can choose the best way of doing this. And problems are more open and they give students more autonomy on how to approach it and what the output might be. So again, that develops problem solving and innovation skills, communication, teamwork and collaboration as well if they're doing it in a group. They have to really look at the problem, they have to generate ideas on how they might solve that problem and really how they might support Jane. And that also helps them themselves if they are experience this as well. They can understand what they might be, the way that you might want to develop employability skills in the classroom. So I've got some generic, more general tips here as well. Again, you may have some more, so feel free to share those ideas in the chat too. It's really interesting to hear other people's opinions. So I've kind of grouped these tips into the different stages of lesson planning. So we've got planning first. And the first tip is really to consider the learning objectives around employability skills to add to your lesson plans. You, as we've said, you might already be developing those skills. You might already have planned an activity, but how can you add an employability skills element into that learning objective or into that activity? Can you do it slightly differently? So that's really interesting there. You can also definitely make use of our employability skills framework for ELT so that you can find suitable learning objectives that you want to develop. So you can either look at the core areas, the bigger areas, or the components, if you'd like. And that framework is there to give you a sense of all the different areas that you could develop and give a balance of those skills that you might want to work on. So you're not just focusing on one or two, but you're looking at that whole range of skills. And it might be that you can kind of tick things off as you go throughout the year with your students, that you can kind of see that you're getting that balance. And here also finally choose a learning objective that best suits your learners' needs. So that activity we did before, where they have to come up with their list of strengths and weaknesses. It might be that you want to add a learning objective that works on their weaknesses that they've already identified. You've got a great output from that activity. They've told you what their strengths are. They've told you what their weaknesses are. Let's use that information to inform your future lessons. You could have a list of the weaknesses that students have identified, and then you can use those to really focus and prioritize what you might want to work on. I hope you can. I've just seen that there might be some problems with the internet. I hope you can hear me. Yeah, you can hear me?
Yes,
okay, great.
Olivia, there is just moments where we see some freeze,
Okay.
but then the session continues, so don't worry.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm glad you can hear me okay. So now let's look at during the lesson, what can we do there? It's always useful to make your students aware of the skills that they're developing. So as we've said and we've discussed in the chat, and it's really great that you're already developing some of these skills in your students. You might have already planned to include some employability skills in your lessons, but really make sure students are aware so that they understand that they're the skills that they have and that they're developing, and they can really highlight those and showcase them when they're applying for jobs, and they can transfer those into their different careers as well. So that whilst you might be developing those skills in the classroom, if they're not aware of that, then it's hard for them then to kind of highlight that and really showcase that to future employers. Another tip here is to observe your students in your lessons when they're doing the activities. And again, this is probably something you're doing already, but you can use your observations to determine your students' strengths and weaknesses, and again, use those to inform future lessons. But also give feedback on your observations to students, because it's always really useful to hear that from other people. So from you as a teacher, but also encourage students to give feedback to each other as well. Like if they were in a group activity, really get them to give positive and constructive feedback on how well they worked with them in the group, or what particular skills did they do really well. Like, oh, the way you approached this problem was really interesting. I really liked how you thought outside the box and came up with a new approach to what we would do normally. Really encourage that feedback there with students, because again, if they're aware of those skills that they've got and developing, they can then use that in their applications for jobs and throughout their career. And also it gives them ideas of what they can improve on as well. If it's hard to know what you need to develop on if other people don't help you understand that. So encourage their peers to do that. And obviously, as teachers, you can give that feedback as well. And another tip here is encouraging that self-reflection, as well as peer assessment, as well, as I was just saying. That's always a really useful skill that they can take through into their careers. Self-evaluation and self-assessment, self-reflection is such a valuable skill when you're in a job. I'm sure you understand that as teachers yourself as well. Really thinking about ways that you could do better. So there's a couple of examples there. So the WWW method, which you may have heard of already, what went well, or there's the EBI method, even better if. And actually it's ideal if you use them both together. So really looking at, okay, so I was really pleased with how well this element went, but I think I would be better if I did this bit a little bit differently, or if I thought about this thing that I didn't think about before. And then some tips for after the lesson. It's always useful for yourselves to reflect on what went well and what can be improved as well, using the exact same methods. As I said, you can share that with your teachers, your fellow teachers. You can ask them questions, ask for their feedback, saying, oh, I did this lesson, this element went really well, but I wasn't quite sure how this bit went. I think I could have done this differently. Do you have any ideas of how I might want to approach that? Have you done that in your own lessons, and what went well there? And that brings me on to my next point about sharing your successes and challenges with other teachers. whether that's in your school or institution or with others through different forums. It's always useful to share and get ideas from other teachers as well. And this forum here is a great place to do that. And use what you've learned to inform your future lessons. Any observations you make in class from your students, any comments from your students that they've made in their own reflections, always use those to plan your future lessons and tweak what you might do. So as I was saying before, there might be an activity from your course book that you've already planned to do, and you want to develop one particular skill in that activity, but based on your observations or based on feedback from your students, you might think, oh no, actually, I think it would be better if we focused on developing this particular skill right now, because that's what's on their minds, that's what they'd like to do. So as I said, this might not be anything new, but it's just kind of really flagging how we can make students more employable. And I think it's really useful to understand that actually what you are doing is already really helping your students develop their employability skills. So that's how we can make our students more employable, understanding what skills students need to develop it in the first place, what will make them more successful in their careers, and integrating them into the English language lessons where these skills are being developed already, and extending those activities with an employability focus, and then reflecting on that and making students aware of the skills so that they can transfer them and take them forwards into their careers. And all of this that I've talked through today, and I've kind of given you elements of that already, is informed by the research that we've done in this area. So we've gone out there and found all this information from different employers, different companies and organizations, and done some research into employability. And we've put this all together for you here. And before we finish, I think we've got time, hopefully. I would like you to share in the chat one idea from the session that you could try out in your classes next week. And that doesn't have to be something that I've shared with you. It might be that someone's shared something with you in the chat that you think, oh, actually, that's a really great idea. I'm going to try that in my classes next week. Or if there's any other things that you would like Cambridge to do in this area. Is there anything that you were hoping to get from this session today that you haven't heard or seen? What can we be doing more in this area? It'd be great to hear your thoughts on that. Sometimes I work with interview simulations where students present their resumes. Yeah, that's a great activity to do. Everyday problems. Yeah, job interviews, that's always a great thing to do. So for job interviews, you could either role play that in the classroom, and I think it's actually okay to do that in your first language as well, because if they're applying for jobs in their first language, it's fine to practice that as well through the role play. Or you could get videos of a good interview and a bad interview and ask the students to comment on what characteristics made up a good interview and which made up the bad interview, whether that was what they were saying, whether that was body language, or the amount of information they were giving. Role plays are coming up. Yeah, that's great. Using tools and creating digital content. Yeah, there's a lot of emotional intelligence coming up there, and I think that's a really important area. As you know, the world is changing fast, and we have to deal with a lot of change and uncertainty, and having that emotional intelligence to deal with those situations is really important. So I think it's great if we can develop that in our students as well. Oh, this is really great to see all your ideas coming through. I'm so pleased. We'll be on spring break here in Mexico. Oh, great. So you've got a little while to think about this. Oh, I hope that you have a good spring break and you get back to it in full force once you're well rested. Okay, great. I was going to ask you for another activity, but I think we can leave it there now, because I think we've got to move on to any questions if you've got them. I can stop sharing my screen.
Thanks, Olivia. Thank you very much. Lots of food for thought. And I think that it's safe to say that it's clear that many managers are looking for people to solve problems. I think this means that if you're in Mexico and you can solve problems in both
Yeah.
Spanish and English, your employability level is really high.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
We've got several questions, so let's see how many we can answer, shall we? Here's a
Okay,
really
I'll do my
interesting
best.
one. Yes, let's see how many we can have. How do you know which skills to prioritize?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, you don't really is the answer, and actually all of the skills and competencies are really important. What I would say is kind of what I said before actually in the session is using the information that you're getting from your students. Get them to tell you which skills they would like to develop, and from your observations, what do you think they might need to do to improve in? So you can definitely prioritize those. Like you said, it seems like employers really want problem solving, so you could focus on that as well. And it kind of depends what you're already doing in your classes. As I said right at the beginning, your time is precious. So if you've already got those lessons planned and you're already looking at digital literacy, how can you just spin that? How can you add an employability focus, and which skill is most relevant and appropriate for that activity that you're already doing?
Thank you. Another great question here. Olivia, do you think that soft skills can be implemented the same way as hard skills in the curriculum that is used in schools?
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, it would be good to have some examples from you there, but I mean, yes, in a way, but I guess it all comes down to kind of the practice and what you're getting students to do. I think making them aware of what they're doing, particularly with these soft skills, is probably different to those hard skills in a way, because it's not always as clear cut as the hard skills really. So you might have to just make things more visible and more apparent to your students, but generally the kind of way you approach that is okay, is the same.
Lovely. And I think we've got time for another one. Olivia, is there a piece of research or book that you would recommend us reading? We had that research material that you mentioned, and we shared the link, but this one is about something that we can share with our students, something that might help them realize how very important soft skills are. I think this is a great question.
That is a really great question.
Well worth thinking about.
Yeah, and do you know what? I don't know if I do, but I can definitely have a look for you. In the meantime, I would say encourage students to look for podcasts or blog posts, something that's kind of easier to digest than a full book maybe, on people that are giving tips and advice on what you can do in job interviews, or how you can be more employable, for those kind of more soft skills development outside of the classroom. I think giving students that the onus on the students to think about that themselves is a great idea, and I'll definitely try and find a book or something that you can share with them.
That will be great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Olivia. Thank you very much. Maybe if we do something similar next year, and we'd like to invite non-ELT practitioners, the next one can be in Spanish, right? ¿Por qué no? It's up to you.
¿Por qué no?
Thank you very much. Thank everyone, all of you. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here with us today. Remember, you will be getting an email soon. And yes, we have Semana Santa next week. So please have a great time giving yourselves a break. You deserve it, right? I'm sure we'll meet again soon, somewhere, either at an event or in another Cambridge webinar. Once again, Olivia, thank you very much. Please, everyone, enjoy your time off next week. And if there are no more messages from our wonderful marketing team backstage, then I think this is it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye.